in case we go over anything that other members of the course would find beneficial. So basically, the purpose of these chats is to answer your questions, give you insight, reassurance, anything that you feel that you want to know more about or want clarification of, or that you're curious about with regard to the course. So, and as I said, in my announcements and videos and so forth, these chats are optional. There was one yesterday that's going to go up on Blackboard sooner than later. I didn't get around to it yesterday, but I will be putting that up on Blackboard as well as this one for the benefit of those who want to look and see what was talked about. So, of the two of you who are here, Jasmine and Davinia, do you have any questions? Anything that you want clarification on with regards to the class?
I have one, but it's towards the homework. One of the homeworks.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
What exactly can we write, or some ideas, or how can we start off for the first reflection essay?
Oh, the first reflection. So if you look at the bottom of the submit, so have you looked at the submission page? So you go into the course content, and then the week for that week for week 2, folder for week 2, and then there's a submission page for the first reflection or week 2 reflection. So if you click that, it gives about a 3-paragraph explanation of how to go about doing a reflective essay. And also at the bottom of that, there are 3 kind of lead questions that are designed to inspire you as to what you might want to write about. Now, having said that, a couple of things. One, and I emphasize this on the description of the reflective essay on the submission page. Y'all can turn on your video if you want. You don't have to, but just don't feel like you have to not be on video. But anyway, yeah. So the reflective essay is an actual essay. It is not numbered answers to questions. Okay, it is not short paragraphs or whatever. It is an actual essay. So you need to create a minimum 2-page double-spaced essay per week. Now, some weeks, what you're going to find is you're going to write 4 or 5 pages just because you're going to have a lot going on in that week. Okay, let's back up a little bit, and I'll kind of get into the philosophy behind the reflective essays and why it's such a part of the course. So with reflection as a genre, and I put up a link to an essay on academic reflection, but still, even so, I mean, even that little essay can be a little bit cumbersome in terms of some of the ideas and the way in which it's communicated. But in essence, right, reflection has 2 primary characteristics. Okay, one is detail. Okay, one is detail. So, for example, if you tell me, the experience of of creating my first draft of my narrative essay sucked. If you tell me that, then I'm gonna that's not detailed, right? That's not detailed at all. I'm gonna be like, well, why did it suck? Give me some examples, give me some specific reasons, right? Some detail, right, as to why it sucked. When you start to add detail, then you begin to touch on reflection. That's the first aspect of reflection. The second aspect of reflection is, with that detail, you need to communicate meaning, right? You need to communicate significance. In other words, you've described why something sucked, but tell me then, or in the process of describing it, how does that make you feel? right? What do you think of, what are your thoughts about that experience? You know, why do you think it sucked for you, right? So there's the how it sucked, and then there's the why it sucked, and what that sucking means, right? What does that mean to you, right? So those are the aspects of reflect. Those are the primary aspects of reflection that denote something as reflection. Okay. Now, backing up even further, okay, uh, to the well, I'll pause there. So understand that if you submit your minimum 2-page double-spaced reflective essay, and it is in fact an essay, and it is in fact reflective based on the qualities that I just described, you will get a complete credit for that, okay? Because you've met the minimum requirements dictated in the assignment description, okay? You don't have to necessarily stick to the questions that I give every week. Those are just suggestions, right? Those are suggestions in the case of, as was brought up, you know, what could I possibly write about? What are some ideas? Well, in each of the reflective assignment descriptions, there'll be at least a few ideas based on, you know, what we've had going on in the class that week, based on, you know, the assignments and so forth. What it could be, what's going on in the world, it could be whatever, but I'll include something to help you as kind of a catalyst to get you to be thinking about reflection. It's going to get easier though as we move through the semester, because you'll have more to reflect upon. So the theme, or the general context for your reflection every week should be how the effort that you're putting into the course, right? You're reflecting on the effort that you put into the course. Okay. Now this can, that reflection can come in many different from many different avenues, or from many different perspectives, right? Because, say for example, you know, you had to take care of like a younger sibling or a cousin that week, and you know, you had to spend like 6 to 8 hours doing that, and then say you have a job, and say you had to spend 20 hours at your job, and so obviously that's going to affect the quality of the labor that you're putting into the course, or maybe not necessarily the quality, but it's going to affect how you put labor in the course, and it's going to affect when you're able to work on the course, and so on and so forth. That's all stuff that you include in your reflection, right? Because you're talking about your experience of the course, what's affecting, you know, what's going on, you know, with the course, and with your life, and how that's intersecting, right? Those are all aspects you can include in the reflection. Also, and you'll note, at least one of the questions I asked for this week, or I suggested for this week, I should say, has to do with, you know, if you have a difficulty, how do you plan on addressing that? How do you plan on overcoming said difficulty, right? You can also reflect on that. You know, here's my, okay, so you might say, well, this week I had X, Y, and Z come up. Here's how I plan on dealing with it if this happens again. Okay, so all that can be part of reflection. And I will say, and I believe I said this on the assignment sheet as well, that I don't expect you to divulge anything about which you are particularly uncomfortable, or that is currently traumatizing to you. If you choose to do so, I respect that, and I honor that, but I also respect and honor if you choose not to, right? The purpose of this course is not to traumatize anybody, okay? So just, so be aware of that. I'm not expecting you to, you know, divulge all of your trauma and so forth, and thereby cause you difficulty. I'm not, that's not the purpose of this course, okay? So now that's not to say, like, if, for example, and this is, hopefully they've told you this, and this is not directly related to reflective essay, but it also is. If, for example, you're having a tough week or whatever, or something happens and you can't get your assignment in on time. Incidentally, unless otherwise indicated, assignments are due 11:59 p.m. on Saturday. You should see that you'll see that on the syllabus. Okay, but anyway, if you're running into difficulty and you let me know ahead of time, like say for example you got sick on a Monday or on a Tuesday, and you're like, I'm really sick this week. I don't know if I'm gonna have my stuff done by Saturday. Let me know ahead of time, and I can pretty much guarantee you, I'm gonna give you some leeway on that. If you were to try to let me know after the fact, that just pisses me off. I mean, you still should, but that would piss me off, right? Because you had all week to let me know that you were sick and you were having issues, but you didn't, right? That's irresponsible. So you see the difference there. And that is also something you can write about in your reflection as well. I contacted, I contacted Kurt on this day because I wasn't feeling well, and so, or I contacted you. You can speak directly to me in the reflection, right? Because the point is that all of that ties into the labor. It figures into the labor that you're doing for the course, and labor is labor is how the course is assessed, right? The course is assessed based on the quality of the labor that you put into it, okay? And a lot of that quality is represented through your reflections, okay? That's why the reflections are so important. That's why you're doing them essentially every week, okay? Because it's through the reflections, that's your primary way of showing that that you're doing quality labor for the course. You're advocating for the quality of your labor through the reflections, okay? Do note that every time you don't turn something in is a letter grade, okay? That's indicated in the syllabus, but I want to emphasize that every time you don't turn something in, and by not turning something in, I mean something that is submitted through Blackboard through a submission link, that actually has a number that's assigned to it. That means, every time you don't turn something in, it's a letter grade. So you need to turn everything in, even if you feel like it's not that good, right? You still need to turn it in, because turning stuff in is, and making the time to do that and so forth, that is labor, that's effort. You've got to strategize how to do that. You got to make sure that, so all that factors in, but do turn everything in. Also, just as a side note, and is clearly indicated on the syllabus, no Google Docs and no pages. No Google Docs and no pages, ever. No Google Docs, okay? Blackboard hates Google Docs, okay? So do not try to submit something in Google Docs. It will not work, okay? Same thing with pages. You have to have a Mac to read pages, okay? Now you can, both in Google Docs and Pages, you can convert those to PDF and then submit the PDFs. That's what I would recommend you do, okay? So that's the reflective essay. Hopefully that's a little bit clearer on that, as far as what's expected of the reflective essay. But again, those are every week and so on. Now, let me back up to how the course is assessed. So the numbers indicated on the syllabus, 1 to 5, as scores, those are not traditional numerical scores. As I explained in my syllabus video, if you had an opportunity to watch that, if Blackboard would allow me to put emojis in those spots, I would put emojis, but it doesn't. Those numbers are symbols. They're symbolic. They are not, in other words, they're not meant to add up to any kind of total, okay? If you see a score of a 5 on something, it means that you turned it in on time and complete as per the minimum requirements of the assignment as indicated in that assignment description on the submission page for that assignment, okay? If you see something that's a 2 or a 3, a 2 is late. Late means that it's turned in after the due date, but within 48 hours of the original due date. Unless, and there are some times where I might tell you, okay, I'm going to give you additional time for which to turn something in for late credit, okay? But that's what a late is. A 3 is incomplete, meaning that you didn't meet the minimum assignment requirements. Honestly, I'm pretty lax on that, unless it's blatant, unless it's just extremely blatant. For example, if I ask for a 2-page reflection and you give me a single paragraph, that's incomplete, right? There's no way to argue about that. You know, it's right. It's just obviously incomplete. But even, for example, like if you turn in a 2-page essay that's supposed to be reflective and it's not necessarily reflective, I'll point out, you know, in my comments why it's not reflective, but I'm still, especially early in the semester, I'm still going to give you a complete on it because you did turn in a 2-page essay, see, right? So, and rarely I'll give somebody a 4 that's incomplete and late, and then, you know, and a 5 is, excuse me, and a 1 is you just don't turn it in at all. Or no, a 1 is it's turned in, but it's turned in after 2 weeks of the due date, right? So in essence, you can get 2 1s or 2 4s and still have an A. You can get a combination of 4 2s and 3s and still get an A, right? So basically, if you turn in 4 things late throughout the term, you can still get an A. It would average out to something like an 89.5, right? If I were to do a traditional number grade. But I wouldn't recommend making that a habit, simply because you know, that kind of stuff adds up pretty quickly, right? But what this amounts to, right, is that you, with the effort-based assessment, is that you're ultimately in competition with yourself, right? Because everyone starts out at a different place with one's comfort level with writing, with one's previous experiences, and so on and so forth. So your goal, in part, is to make improvements and to gain confidence based on where you happen to be at the beginning, right? So it's not so much that you create, you know, a quote unquote perfect document. It's how much effort and the quality of the effort that you're putting in to create your documents. That's not to say that I'm not going to ask you for incremental improvements. I am, you know, from, say, for example, an initial draft to a final draft, I'm going to say on that assignment sheet, you know, indicate 3 substantial revisions, you know, in that assignment sheet. And then when you do your reflective essay for that week, I'll be like, well, you know, one of the things I'm going to bring up to talk about in your reflection potentially is the reasons that you made particular revisions that you did, you know, in your essay and so forth, right? So, you know, it's not as though I'm not asking you to make improvements and so forth. I am. I'm just what I'm trying to do is take the stick away, in the sense that, you know, you're not being beaten over the head, for example, or metaphorically speaking, for what you don't know, right? The challenge is to commit yourself to improving, you know, from the launch point, if you will, right? Hopefully that makes sense. It's something that we'll revisit but key points are turn in everything on time, and that those numbers are not the numbers that you'll see on Blackboard are not for adding, right? They're not for a total or a percentage, okay, in the traditional sense. Any other questions? No questions. Hopefully, you've been able to, if you open up, for example, this week, week 2, you open that and you'll see a link that says groups. That's going to lead you to your creativity group, and there's a couple of discussion threads on there now. One is an introduction thread, just to introduce yourself to your group and maybe exchange contact information and such, because these are the people that you'll be working with for peer review when that comes up. And also there's a thread for beginning to talk about topic possibilities for the first essay. The topic possibilities for the first essay, as you know, on that group with your group members, based on the reading that I put in the readings folder, Sandra Cisneros' only daughter, and there's a PDF of that, as well as a video of that that you can look at. And the video, I mean, that Cisneros' piece is a strong piece, but it's only, I mean, the video is like 5 minutes long, so it's not like you have to take a whole afternoon to watch it or something. Okay. Anything else? No questions for me. Something that somebody brought up yesterday in the talk that is probably worth mentioning here. So the word absences in the syllabus, that in some ways is in large part is a holdover from when the course was taught in person. Understand that your attendance is assessed by you turning stuff in, right? So again, you know, you need to turn stuff in on time, right? So frankly, I'm not even going to think about absences or considering anything related to an absence if you turn in everything on time. And if you communicate with me, if you communicate with your group members and your groups and so forth when that comes up, you know, that's not even gonna, you know, cross my consciousness, so to speak. But the key point is turning everything on time, right? That's just, and you can see, and I'm obviously putting up stuff week to week. So there'll be, for example, my goal is like on Sundays to have, say I'll have week 3 up and so forth, but you can always see what's coming up on the syllabus in the, you know, in the course schedule, because that's what I'm going by as well, right? So you can look through that course schedule. You can look at the what assignments are due, what the due dates are, and so on and so forth, right? Any other thoughts? I will be having these chats on Mondays and Tuesdays from week to week as needed. I may add another one if there's call for that. We may, you know, drop one if there's not, if not many people are coming on. So I think we've had like 5 people in total on this one. Yesterday morning, I think we had 8 or 9. So, you know, we'll just see how it goes. Definitely, as you come up with questions and thoughts and so forth, you know, send me a text, and yeah, we'll go from there. Any parting questions? Because if not, I'm getting bombarded on my various devices of people trying to communicate with me. So I've got to check on some stuff. But yeah, please text me if you, I mean, wait, let me see, there's a chat. Oh, okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Yeah, that's the purpose of these little chats, right? Or these little meetings is if something's unclear, you know, we can address it here. You can text me. You can, you know, whatever you need to do. I had somebody text me yesterday just to comment on one of the videos that I put on in the readings, and that's fine. You know, my role is to be a support for you as you improve your writing. Okay, so that's what I'm going to try to do. And like I said yesterday, if I'm awake, I'm probably going to text you back. Obviously there are extenuating circumstances, but generally, if I'm awake, I'll just pick up my phone and text you back real quick. If I don't, it means that I'm engaged in something, and I'll get back with you. Like right now, I just had 2 people text me, and obviously I'm not picking up my phone and texting them back right now because we're doing this talk. So anyway, but I do try to get back as quickly as I can, understanding that a lot of you, at least in my previous experience here in Temusa and my almost 21, 22 years of teaching this class, obviously not only at Temusa, but students, you all have so many responsibilities, and some of you have extremely important jobs, particularly now, like Amazon, like HEB, like hospital, and so you're doing very important work, thankless work in many cases, and even if what you're doing during the day is taking care of kids or taking care of elderly relatives and stuff, that's very thankless a lot of times, and it's very consuming of your personal resources, and I get that, or I try to understand that. So I do try to respond as best I can. Okay, all right. No other thoughts, questions. Have a lovely day, and again, we'll pick up with these chats next week as well. And I shall talk to you all later, either here on the chat or via text message. Okay, thanks a lot.